look, we're in a different setup just for that one guy who asked for it. See, I read the comments and I like to give back. It's probably more boring than my other one. But hey ho, at least when you clicked on it visually, you would have been like, oh, he's in a different place. Isn't it exciting? Anyway, my name is Simon Miller. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Miller Report Rules. It's like the Foo Fighters, that is. Dave Grohl always said, if he knew, I'm not saying my channel is as big as the point is this. The point is this. I wouldn't have called my channel The Miller Report Rules at this point. That's all I meant. I was going off on a tangent. Bit of a open-ended one today, but I thought it'd be fun. It would probably spark some debate. And also, even though I have actually made a video on here before called the top 10 best games ever made, people still ask me all the time, Sam, what's your favourite game? Sam, what's your favourite game? Favourite game, Sam? Tell me about your favourite game, which I like. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy the community. It's always good to hear that kind of stuff. But now I'll have a solid video where we can talk about it and you can tell me yours in the comments and we can have a big row. Maybe I'll do another one of these about my worst game ever as well. But that will probably do better. Hey, look at that. I've just made myself some extra content. So, my favourite game ever made is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Some people watching this may not have even been born when that came out in, I think it was November or December 1998. Came out on the Nintendo 64. Bizarre console Nintendo 64, because most retro machines you can go back to and actually feel quite comfortable with them. The N64 you can't, because it has the most bizarre control that you hold in the middle, and it has C buttons. Now, in terms of the evolution of controllers, it's actually quite a big deal. Without that, who knows where we would be now. However, if you've never used a Nintendo 64 controller, especially if you're used to first-person shooters, and what they are in the modern day, you go back and let me know how you get on. I already know, you're going to be frustrated. Also, the frame rate on N64 games is a nightmare. You've got to emulate them and you're not supposed to do that. Anyway, the reason I can say with so much so much confidence that I know not only is it my favorite game now, but it always will be, is because it ties into nostalgia, right? Much like wrestling, my other love, as I'm sure you know, I do think when you play a game when you're younger and you're a kid, there's always going to be something you can't replicate when you're older because you're experiencing things for the first time. Like open world games, for example, now are a dime a dozen. I mean, Ubisoft are absolutely obsessed with them. But then an open world game to me, I mean, I played Grand Theft Auto, but that was different because it was top down. And while you could tell there was an element of freedom there, it was different when the camera is pulled down and you're actually, behind a character and role-playing game, blah, blah, blah. So, I've talked about this 1,000 times, but when I first walked out into Hyrule Field and all of a sudden I'm just like, wait, I can go wherever I want. It's a crazy thought when I'm, when I'm young and, still learning about technology and still getting into games really. And I've been playing them for a while, but, still learning about them. It blew my mind. I couldn't believe that there was this whole world I could just go in. And of course the game is very smart. Nintendo had locked off certain areas and you could only get there where you got a Pona or we could do that all day. But it was the expansive nature of it that just instantly grabbed me. And I remember playing it. My parents got it for me for Christmas Day. Thank you, Mum and Dad. I appreciate it. And I remember my mum coming in and saying, look, we've got to go to Nan's house now, again, Christmas Day. And I was like, I'd rather not. I'd rather sit here and play Ocarina of Time. She's like, well, you can do that. But if you do, it won't be here. When you next want to play it, it will vanish. I was like, I get it. I'll come to Nan and Granddad's. But it was also just, I love Zelda anyway. I love the original Zelda, which if you go back and play now, that is a true open world experience. You can go wherever you want in that. You can just ignore the first dungeon entirely. And so I loved that. Zelda 2, I kind of got a kick out of because it was so weird. And I appreciated and I respected that Nintendo had tried to do something just so different with it. I think it just came out on the Switch, or there's something, you can download it or something, I don't know. Maybe it's one of the free games you get if you are a Nintendo Online subscriber. But it's not an easy game to play, but it's an interesting game to play. So there's something there. And then obviously you get to Link to the Past. And Link to the Past was the first game that really, kind of grabbed me by the lapels and threw me around for the very same reason. It was just, even the rain. The very first thing you see in Zelda, Link to the Past, when you go outside is that rain. And even back then on a Super Nintendo, you're like, this is really cool. There's an atmosphere in the music. It was intense and, it kind of got you worked up. And really, you can argue that Ocarina of Time, they just took the camera and pulled it behind Link and went, there you go do the same thing again. You can argue that for many Zelda games, which is why, somewhat oddly, Breath of the Wild, which came out a couple of years ago that everybody loves, and I massively respect, actually isn't the Zelda game I want to play because I bought in so hard to that old model that's all I want. I am the problem. I am the problem with Zelda games. I'm proud to say it. I'm right here. Hello, how are you doing? But yeah, it was the way that, you met characters and you went to different environments and there was a sense that when you got to the end of the game, that you had seen it shift and you had seen it change. And obviously a big reason for that is because Link goes for adult Link to kid Link, and you're constantly going back and forth depending on the puzzles you have to do or the dungeons you've got to overcome. And I loved that. And I loved it so much that I try and play at least a little bit of it. I used to play the whole thing, but I just don't have the time anymore. But I always try and play a little bit of it every Christmas, because that's the memory I have from when I was a kid, which is kind of what this vlog is more about, other than, you know, the technical or the whatever, the plaudits of the game itself. That's the thing I find kind of coolest, is that I love it so much simply because, again, because it's really, really good, but also because it reminds me of that time. And that's why it's really hard to, you know, imagine anything else coming along now that would be able to move me, I guess, for lack of a better term, as much as that did. You know, when I look back on memories that I feel like had made a dent and obviously brought me to the dance now. If you don't know, before I got into all my stuff I was doing now, I was a games journalist. I worked in games. I wrote manuals and did copywriting for a bit. That's really the first industry I threw myself in. And I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't for a game like Ocarina of Time. And I'm sure you've got your own one. I mean, you know, Metal Gear Solid comes up a lot on these lists. Obviously, Mario is Mario. There'll be thousands, you know. We could sit here all day. It all depends on your era, your generation, and what console you like the most. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing that you can sit down and play something like that and instantly be transported back to where you were then. And I think those kind of, I mean, they say it's not good to look back because you can trip up. And that is true. You should always look forward. You should always be positive. You should always be, you know, staring towards not necessarily the future. I mean, really what you want to be doing is living in the present, right? Because the present, I always talk about this and find it crazy, but the present is all you have. That's it. There's nothing else actually exists. Even what I was talking about 2 minutes ago doesn't exist anymore. That's the past. That's history, and I can't go back and change that, which is why if you can, you always want to be back bouncing along. But with that said, you know, playing that game or thinking about that game or even telling tales about that game now reminds me of my mindset back then, you know, whatever problems I was going through, struggles, you know, I was a young child, so, you know, you're about to go through puberty and all these kind of things. And I just find it amazing that you can do that. And that's why, you know, stuff like games, music, and whatever else you consider a passion is so important, because it does ground you at a specific place in time. And it does allow you to kind of work through all those feelings again. And maybe, even to like a smaller extent, remind you how far you've come and how you've evolved and how you've developed as a human being. And I think that kind of, I think it's crucial to do that. I think, you know, being introspective sometimes and shutting out the world and, you know, going on these flights of fancy, as people say, and just taking stock and doing a little tick box to make sure everything's going well. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, which again, and that's why thanks to Nintendo, by the way, for bringing out the Ocarina of Time on the 3DS. That made my life a hell of a lot easier when I want to sit down and play it all the time. But yeah, it's weird how you can connect, you know, through these, you know, external mediums without wanting to sound like a right asshole. And Ocarina of Time has always done that for me. I think it's brilliant. The Water Temple sucks, we know. Although actually, if you go back and play the Water Temple now, unless you're playing the Master Edition or whatever the hell it was called, which is a lot harder, it ain't that bad. You can kind of get through it. It's maths. Where does the water need to be? It's fine. It's the final battle that I don't find it disappointing now. But that final, it's like most end boss battles in games. If I know you go crazy, if it was up to me, I'd just kill all boss battles now. I don't think they've ever really been bettered from back in the day. They don't really think they've improved, or I've ever sat down to play a game and gone, oh, thank goodness there's a boss battle in it. But yeah, it was always, when I play it now, that ending boss battle, while it's cool with Ganon, and you're just doing the whole playing tennis thing that Zelda's done for ages. But I was like, well, I don't really need that. But you've got to finish the game, right? And I guess finishing the game is like any kind of creative project. It's really hard. Like, how do you do it? But yeah, I just love it. Like, even the music. That's the other thing. Like the Gerudo Valley theme, diddle-a-doo-doo-doo-diddle-a-doo. It's something I learned on the guitar, because I'm a moron. This was years ago. But I was like, I'm going to learn it because I love that theme so much. That, again, shows that it's had some kind of emotional impact on you. But also, I still listen to it now, and it's still in my head. I haven't played Zelda in a while, but I still got that theme, you know, in my head. I can hear other ones, and I'll remember them when I hear. But if you say to me, Miller, you know, sing the Gerudo Valley theme in your head, it's there, like that. And I know they did it in Link to the Past, of course. They did it in every Zelda game. But I feel like in Ocarina of Time, the whole, you know, structure of, you know, new dungeon, find weapon, use weapon to kill boss, and then usually you use that weapon to then get further within the world. I just love it. It's just so satisfying. Obviously, you had Majora's Mask spin-off, which I appreciate from a creative point of view, but still think it has one hell of a crazy game. I don't understand it at all. I don't think I've ever finished it. Too weird. That moon is too scary. It really is. It's a screwed up moon. But yeah, all of it came together. And yeah, it still puts a smile on my face, which is nuts because it's now 20, well, I guess just over 20 years old, really, given that we're in February 2019 here. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. That's my favourite game. Zelda Ocarina of Time. Very boring answer. I know. If I was going to round out my top 5, this will now be different to the list I put on there because I forget what I put in those lists. But top of my head, it'd be Batman Arkham City, Shadow of the Colossus, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and either Dragon Age Origins or KOTOR. They're the same game. One's in space. One's like a medieval game. That's it. Right, leave a comment below. Let's have a big argument about what your favourite game is. It's always good to hear. Like, share, and subscribe. I've got a Patreon. If you want to contribute to that, it's patreon.com/Simon316. There's a link in the description. That would rock. And if nothing else, if you're watching this on Friday, have great weekends. If you're watching this randomly in the future, have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Put a smile on your face. I'll see you soon.